Okay, here's a new site. It's another Afrocentric coming on like he's brand new. And he's named himself conspicuously without history. Some of these names are so self-exposing. Other ones, they just try to choose an Egyptian name and go off that. He wants to tell you that there's been consistent denial of African historical contribution in many instances, modification of evidence to fit a certain narrative. And one such area is the contribution of Africans in mathematics, and our documentation goes into detail on this. So he wants to tell you that wewas mathematics. The people that are telling you this are people that did not have math in any way, shape, or form whenever they were first found. There's a slaver account that refers to finding one that's able to count on his fingers, and then he actually makes him his little sidekick. In a minute, I'll show you something they found out about mathematics. I've already done other videos showing you the incredible mathematics the Egyptians had with sacred geometry and how they built the pyramids to that exact size for a reason and things along that nature. But as you see here, what we're really having again is Afrocentrics, mainly from far west sub-Saharan African heritage, trying to claim that they knew Egypt existed. No, wait, that they were the Egyptians. Yeah, the Caucasian Egyptians, that they were them, and somehow they invented things. Usually whenever they choose one of these things, it's something that they aren't proficient in even to this day. So it's real self-exposing, but they want to claim things. So here we've claimed mathematics, but then they're going to try to show you something else in the art that's shown here. This is Hatshepsut. So he tells you when you see this evidence of modification of a certain narrative, you'll see it in statues and stuff. But let's go back here just for a second. It has been consistent denial of African historical contribution in many instances, modification of evidence to fit a certain narrative. No, there's not really been any of that. In fact, yes, Africa does have mathematics, and people have talked about it. Really, if you don't get deep into Egyptians, you don't find that they had so much more knowledge than you're led to believe in a cursory glance at them. It's one of the reasons I refer to the fact of a lost civilization that people keep talking about. And well, one you could start with is Egypt or Samaria, or even back to Göbekli Tepe and so on, because we're finding these people knew a whole lot more than we were ever taught in school and so on, and I'm even talking about collegiate level. And it's all coming out, but it's kind of hidden too, because it's showing you these people had a lot going on. So believe it or not, a lot of the videos about that type of information are listed as pseudoscience and then try to be blackballed. A lot of times they're going off of people from the 1900s and even 1800s looking at this thing, actually measuring the pyramids and doing all kinds of things, and they want to discount that now too. Like somebody didn't notice something well back then that fit. Cubits and things like that. But Africa was, of course, named by endemic Caucasians that had been there for at least 30,000 years or more. In fact, Soy Kita had said when questioned on it, when were there people in Egypt that looked kind of like Liz Taylor? He answered 60,000 years. And the guy tried to interrupt, and then he said, no, well, always. But blacks don't like that idea, or like the idea that Africa was named by endemic Caucasians. If you look into it, before that point that they got named, Africa for and by endemic Caucasians, it was all called Libya. Right. So really has nothing to do with them whatsoever. They had no hand in naming it in either case. There are people without history, and he wants to play on that and then try to push out a bunch of lies. It's really self-exposing whenever we find out that they really are without history. So he shows you this picture of Hatshepsut. Now, he says when you see it, you'll understand. You have to be careful when you look at artifacts presented as Egyptian. Question the origin, but especially the location, date, and upkeep. I find it strange he even mentions upkeep there. Upkeep is the reason that black neighborhoods become slums real quick. They're not a people known to have any type of upkeep whatsoever. If given the chance to keep up with Egypt, it would deteriorate into nothing. But somehow I'm guessing that he's looking at this, and this is not a case of one of those cracked off noses people right here. This is Hatshepsut, the female pharaoh that's very famous for being a female pharaoh. And this is one of the statues that's out in front of her temple. And someone took a close-up of it. This guy cropped it, and because apparently the plaster that's put upon this has been weathered away by sands and winds, like in a sandblaster, basically, he wants to point out something here, and it's not a cracked and rebuilt nose in any way. It's just the fact that it lost the plaster, and the fact that it lost the plaster and up under it, it still looks like an alkaline nose. He can't handle it. And so the idea presented is that, if you've been listening, is that they've manipulated and changed the artifacts. And this instantly gives blacks an in, you see, because they know, they look at that and they go, come on, that's bullshit, because it doesn't look like us. So the idea is, well, they were all changed. It's all a big conspiracy to hold down the primitives that are currently being propped up more than any people in history, as if somehow there are people trying to hold them back as opposed to propping them up. In this age that we call the age of pandering, you still have this situation going on. And of course you have this idea that we was the Caucasian Egyptians, we was the people in the Bible, we was everybody. They've literally claimed Greeks. I've got a video on it. When this Cleopatra thing came out, I thought this would give us a good little discourse to be able to talk to each other. In fact, they've come out explicitly and said, and we should talk about this. We should open a discourse to talk about all this. Okay, well, you don't want to, because you're going to end up looking like a clown on the world stage, which you already look like. You're just professionally doing it now, somewhat, when you came out with the Cleopatra idea. But they've said that they want an open discourse, so this is surely legible or allowed in the concept idea here of talking about things. It's as, if you want to stop it, it's as simple as saying something as easy and simple as that West Sub-Saharan Congoids didn't even know Egypt existed. Therefore, no matter what you try to come up with, what you're coming up with is that somebody else was doing something, but you never did. It's kind of the weird thing whenever they try to do it, and then they say we, and they point at other people that they didn't even know existed. But the attempt here is that, well, the reason that they do look like Caucasian noses is because someone did something to it. Let's just look at a couple of statements down here, and then I'll go into an idea of math and Pythagorean theorem before Pythagoras and everything on this, guys. Show you kind of where advanced math came from, and in fact, it's not even regular math. It's advanced at its first showing you that before they had writing, they had already figured out math. Yeah. But my comment on this was the Egyptians were always Caucasians from the pre-dynastic, and West Sub-Saharans didn't know Egypt existed and had no math or writing or civilization, and this is past pathetic. I got a response on that from a guy that asked if I had taken my meds today, and I go, "Yep. Are you taking your copium now?" Waiting on a response from that. But this guy, Carmageddon, math literally comes from African spirituality, math, Maat, the African goddess of balance, justice, truth, and harmony. Math is literally what is truth proven by the balance, harmony, justice. Only when math is perfectly balanced on both sides is it considered truth. Oh no, that's not in any way at all, unless you're talking about dividing and having a remainder and it coming to zero eventually, or things along that concept. A lot of mathematical equations, in fact, most all mathematical equations are lopsided in one way or another, but they still come out with the truth. But Ma'at doesn't have anything to do with math. But Matthew of the Bible does. Yeah. But Ma'at has nothing to do with mathematics whatsoever in the Egyptian pantheon. So this is another case of them opening their mouth and saying something, because I guess the word somewhat to them sounds like linguistics will work. But the god of math, well, there's two of them actually, the goddess and god of math are Shishat, a female. Now this is a name that means female scribe. So it's something that, again, like Hashep said, where we can point out that they say that math and its configuration versus the Phoenician type or even the hieroglyphic types from Thoth, they credit it to a lady, Shishat. But the god of math, of all math, is Thoth, or Jehudi. Means the same thing. But Thoth is the god of math, so, Here comes somebody next. I saw YouTube video of them scraping the black color off of painting on the walls to dull the skin color of original people of Kemet. Oh, I'd like to see that. Send me a link. I know of one where people are taking real light brushes and brushing off the cobwebs to set it up to where people can go see it, and that they found out that the black that was done in there, not on people at all, just the outline trim of every object and so on, was made from a soot in a way that if they rubbed it, it tried to come off, and it didn't go away like he's trying to think. It just made it less prominent because it flaked off just like dust. And so they had to be incredibly careful about the whole thing and try to keep it from it. And of course, they're not going to turn around and repaint it or do anything like that. Some restorations have chips that are missing, and they've tried to fill in those chips with corresponding colors and so on, but a lot of people, even themselves, now realize that it's better to probably leave it in that antique look than try to do something and restore it, other than just keep it the way that it is. Next guy here says the deeper they dig, the blacker history gets. Naysayers can be in denial all they want. Well, actually, the deeper history gets, the black people end up being what this man says, without history. For if we go back a short amount of time and look at Herodotus' map, no one knows sub-Saharan Africa exists. The only people that are in contact with anybody that do are Nubian type people. Those aren't related to, and the West Sub-Saharans didn't know that existed. Khoisan aren't related to them, pygmies and so on else, but they want to act like it's one big happy family whenever all the other people go, quit trying to tell us that we're part of your family, we're not. It's hilarious to sit and watch them try to claim other people and have the other people turn around and tell them, quit using my name in your mouth. Such as Ethiopians and Horners, which happened on Chief X's channel not too long ago. It's not just Kemetic artifacts they do that with. Skin has been lightened in European art too, so now the Europeans even lighten their own art. Well, if you'll look, what they do is they take paintings and they'll take Q-tips and this little solvent and Q-tip away at a huge painting, taking them weeks, if not months, to go over to try to take off all the smut that's been on there and built up over years. In fact, after they get through with it, they got to go over it again. Yeah, and this does lighten the paintings, which have darkened over time with a bunch of smuts all over them. There are videos where you can watch them doing this actually, and seeing that it's not ruining anything at all. It's just taking the smuts off of it, almost like washing your shoes and making them look new again. Well, all they're doing here is taking the smuts off of it. Egyptologist 7 has a recent video where she showed where they tried to play off this thing, and they look at these women that are dancing and claim that they were dark and not pale like the other pale women that there are millions of. Therefore, that means that West Sub-Saharan Bantus were in Egypt somehow, and these are them. And that means that Egypt was always only black people, because there's millions of light, pale women, but no, it's got to be these dark women. Well, hilariously, E7 knows her stuff, and she was able to pull up the fact that, well, they're dark all up top, but then their feet are pale. What's up with that? Well, let's just look into what the Egyptologists actually say about it. And they said that it had been varnished, and then, you know, varnish, just like on guitars and things like that, it gets old over time and darkens and so on, and that it had darkened. And they pointed out the fact that the dude didn't paint their feet, and also this is much darker than all the women in the current tomb. But again, that guy didn't want to show that. He wanted to try to show these women that were dark and try to claim Bantu people somehow were there, and that's supposed to write off all these other people that he calls just not worth looking at, or oh, just generic Egyptians, or da-da-da, whenever he's showing things like crystal blue statues of the dynasties, or the ones that built the pyramids. And he says the one that really should be looked at and thought of as being that is this ambiguous statue with a cracked nose. I thought that was hilarious by itself, but E7 got into it, looked around, and oh wait, it's on eBay. There's an eBay thing that you can buy this fake statue that's not even real, and so he wants to go with something off of eBay rather than the actual statues, which he says just are random scribes and things like that. But then if you look them up, Paranefer has a list of things behind him exalting him. Yeah, and so does Ka-Opera, the other statue in that other video. I've done it not too long ago. I don't know what it is, 6 or 8 videos back from this, depending on when I put it out. Damn, you can literally see where they've tampered with it, sanded it down and alkalinized it. That's fucked up. These people are pure evil. Damn, you can really see where black people are just making up shit, lying, and offending everybody they possibly can in the lie. Damn, that's fucked up. These people are pure evil. You just know it's been redone. So, oh wait, so they don't know how to spell know, K-N-O-W, like knowledge. So you just know it's been redone. The fact it isn't African, our statues have just have that African spirituality with it. Europeans try to emulate it, but just can't. Isn't it pathetic whenever they're trying to emulate Egyptian civilization that was made by Caucasians, just like they do in the Bible and everything too nowadays, and try to claim that that's them, they were the spiritual people, whenever they only recently found out about it. Voodoo isn't really a spiritual type thing. If you look into it, they'll try to make all kinds of lies about it, or telling things that aren't true, but cannibal witch potions don't go along with anything that's really spiritual, unless you've taken something way out in left field to where it's not spiritual anymore. They gave the statue a Mr. Bean nose makeover. No, it's a Mrs. Bean. This is Hatshepsut. The same thing they did to Michael Jackson was done to ancient Egyptians. Now, by that statement, they're acting like somebody did something to Michael, that it wasn't his idea to fuck his face up and to try to look like a Caucasian, and then to bleach himself lighter than me and I'm Irish. They want to pretend that somebody did that to him. What they did to Michael. Michael did that to himself. And it's for the same reason that you can't handle reality. And the same reason you're on a site like this looking at wewas, and trying to pretend you might have known Egypt existed. It's past pathetic. As an artist, it's definitely patched. So apparently this guy here wants to claim he was an artist. Why can't we just get our credit? Great artists steal but give honor or inspiration. Well, why can't they get any credit for it? Well, it's basically because it's not theirs. They never knew it existed. So let's look into something about the real origins of math and people that actually had math. Where does it go back to? Well, is it just Egypt? No, it's Sumer, which predates Egypt. They're going to show you here this tablet that they have found that just had apparently some numbers and other stuff on it has now been figured out. Oh, this really happened 6 or 7 years ago now. And they figured out it's got a Pythagorean theorem on it, before Pythagoras and so on here. Let's look at this.
An ancient tablet was recently unveiled that shows the oldest evidence of geometry anywhere in the known world. A tablet comes from somewhere between 1900 and 1600 BC. It was made by a Babylonian surveyor, cut out of clay and written on with a stylus. No one really knew what to make of it until scientists recently rediscovered it in the archives.
So they basically have a bunch of these tablets with numbers on it. Somebody took a look at it, and these guys they're fixing to mention are math freaks. So they gave it to them and everything. And what's anything of this about? Well, a lot of these are just about tabulating grain and everything, and it ends up with a huge number anyhow. But they saw something that was real weird on this one, so he turned around and figured out that it's base 60 math. You know, based on 6 and 60. That's where we get 360 degrees, and also 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night. The whole idea that we've been on as far as time goes and things like that since before recorded time. But they found that it had this on there, so whenever they figured it out, yeah, it's using trigonometry to figure out how to cut up a plot of a land. Apparently, this woman inherited land from when her husband died or something along that line, but in giving it to her kids, she had to split it up. And so they used geometry here and trigonometry to figure out the different plots of land and the way that they could put it built out. And it shows Pythagorean theorem all over it. But so do the Sumerian ziggurats. Let's continue.
We're shocked to find that the unnamed Babylonian mastered the Pythagorean theorem about 1,000 years before Pythagoras was even born. It was Daniel Mansfield and his colleague Norman Wildberger who decoded the ancient clay tablet, which is known as the Plimpton 322 artifact. It's 4,000 years old and covered in organized groups of numbers that mathematicians know as Pythagorean triples. It was an ancient tool that could solve very complicated geometric problems, and it may have even helped the Babylonians build some of their more impressive monuments and temples.
So here we have some real math. And again, like I tell you, you're talking about a lost civilization. Well, I know you know that the Sumerians are credited with agriculture, and they're credited with the wheel, they're credited with irrigation, the plow, all these other things. Oh yeah, that's true. But then they're also accredited with incredible math and Pythagoras theorem before it ever came out. There's an old video that I show that actually shows a Roman arch in the ancient city of Ur, predating Roman arches by thousands of years. So things that sometimes are accredited to people don't give credit back far enough. But then also things like this can show you that even back far enough, these people were more advanced than we give credit for. Again, a lost civilization. Well, you don't even know what the truth is about this one here. It's a lost civilization. We found out so much, it's gobsmacking about the ancient Sumerians, of course, and the Egyptians. To the point that people start invoking things like aliens and all kinds of shit on how advanced these Caucasians were at this time doing all this. And I'm telling you, it's a similar Caucasian because you can find blue-eyed statues in the earliest Egyptian dynasties through the time they were building the pyramids. You can find them in Sumer, and I don't think we'll have any problem finding them up north. And of course goes along with the biblical idea of Ham, Shem, and Japheth and linguistics from the day and all that stuff that's really not in effect anymore. But it does show you the truth and reality of where this all comes from. It's crazy that just a couple of years ago we had the idea that math is racist because white people made it up, and that for some reason they thought that they could say that and make it go away. Like somehow there could be a new different math other than actual math, which is addition and subtracting and everything, and ending up with numbers, using numbers. And there's only one way that can work. It helped to start off the idea of the scientific idea, where we test it. Hey, I added these two numbers and ended up with this. You check those numbers too. I added all this up. What do you think it all adds up to? So on like that. But then, of course, that's the same idea looking in science. But then science has also been called racist because blacks had nothing to do with it. Yet they turn around and try to claim it, as you see what happens here. And mathematics, and writing, and things that they didn't know existed. It's past pathetic. And again, if you think this is some small endeavor or whatever, that page I was going down with what they were saying at goes down, 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 down for a long time. It's got thousands of upvotes on it from black people looking into it, and they all got something to say, and they all say that Whitey stole it from them, which has to do with that cargo cult we talked about. You ought to take a look at my video about cargo cults. It contains a thing about Robert Sepper showing it, but it also shows these researchers going to a place that's little islands in the China Sea, nowhere, but the Seabees were able to come in there and make an airstrip so they could drop off cargo during World War II. And so they ran into some people that were islanders there that were so primitive they had never seen the white man or any of this stuff. And now they made cargo cults out of it, almost like a religion, where they build fake bamboo-looking airplanes and a whole airstrip, and they keep waiting for a cargo cult to come back down and give them some more cargo. But in that idea, which you can see reflected in Black's idea, that it was our ancestors that created that. Yeah, the primitives that can't add or do anything, or surely not build an airplane, said that the airplanes and all the cargo came from their ancestors, and the tricky white man had stole it from them. Not that the tricky white man is giving him cool stuff, and if you'll look in the pictures in that video, it shows you whenever they ran into him, they were loincloth at best. But now they're wearing Caucasian clothes. That one had like a Sprite on his shirt, stuff like that. So kind of shows you the reality of things versus what they're being told. But it's pretty disgusting too. They try to claim also the Sumerians because they've known that they have something interesting with history, and they try to claim anybody that they can and everybody except for themselves. You can see these straight, long, line drawn down hair that are on these people here and what these people look like. If we could ever get some true genetics of some nobility that used to be in Sumer, I think we'll be surprised. Well, some of us will. Some of us will just be vindicated. Anyhow, just thought I'd introduce you to a new guy who wants you to show that. Oh, I was going to show you how Shepsut statues. One moment. A Shepsut statue. So if we just go to images of Shepsut statues, you're going to see a whole lot of statues that all look like this one here. And it's going to be real popular to see this one here, which is close up to right here. But as we go down through this, we can find that, oh wait, here's that statue you're looking at, or one of the, like, I don't know, I think there's like 12 of them that are all the same going down through there. And you can see how her colorization and plaster is all just flaked off of it. This all used to be painted up real good, that the cobra's been broke off by somebody, but the nose isn't broken, and we can see the small alkaline nose. There's no question on that, no matter what they're trying to pull. But let's see if I can show you that actual temple and the ones that they're trying to misuse here. Go down through it. Well, here's another picture. I don't think it's the greatest one at all of it, but it's another one of those same statuaries here. And is that the same one? No, because it's her cheeks that's dark here and so on. Still got her nose, everything. Still looks the same. Yeah, it still looks the same. Just like whenever they try to show you broken nose statues, there are a lot of other statues that show him without a broken nose, and he doesn't have a Negroid type nose. But they don't want to show that. They think they've got a secret thing if they can just find anything with a cracked nose, and if they've got a cracked nose, they can try to claim that it was a Negroid nose that was knocked off because you're trying to hide the fact that West Sub-Saharans used to be the Caucasian Egyptians. Isn't that foolishly stupid? Here's a good close-up, almost the same angle. That might be the exact same one here. No, nothing's happened to it at all. They've just been out front of this temple here, and with the wind going on to it, they basically have been sandblasted. You understand the concept of sandblasting. And that's her nose, and it's not been cracked or refixed or anything like that. So it's hilarious that they tried to take this narrative, and whenever they do, they just fall on their face. Every single attempt. Well, of course they do, because they're trying to claim a people they didn't even know existed, and those people are also Caucasians. From the pre-dynastic all the way through. They're not related to anybody who ever even knew Egypt existed. Look at the size of her ears. She's listening. Yeah. Anyhow, let me know what you think there. I was going to show you. Try to find a picture. There's one where it shows a lineup of them, kind of at an angle. And you're like, okay, well, which one was it they used? And then go through the little pictures of them and stuff and go, oh, is that the same one? No, wait, that's the same one right here. But all the other ones are there. There's plaster on that other one's nose. Most of it's all been sandblasted off. But what's up under it? No, a Caucasian nose. So either they're going to write that off. Oh, people have gone out of their way to sand it down and change it. I think we can tell that's got that eagle nose, little hook thing that's in it that can't be just sanded off. I think we can all tell that they're jealously lying. I think we can all tell that this is past pathetic. So I hope we have a discourse about this, so this might end, because they're making themselves the joke of humanity on the world stage, and it looks like they're just getting started, claiming all these things that everybody else knows is not true. In fact, half the black people know it's not true, but you won't ever see them trying to stop it because, secret be known, they like that cargo cult idea, and anything they can try to do against Whitey, we've still got that problem. While they're in the middle of being propped up by Whitey. Yeah, strange narratives in that too in a modern time, but that's part of the reason I try to stay in ancient times and things, because it was much more simpler time and nobody even knew black people existed. Well, not these black people. They did know Nubians existed. That's for other videos. Let me know what you think down below. Peace.